Dorothy Faye Dunaway is an American actress. She has won an Academy Award, 3 Golden Globes, a BAFTA, and an Emmy, and was the first recipient of a Leopard Club Award that honors film professionals whose work has left a mark on the collective imagination. In 2011, the government of France made her an Officer of the Order of Arts and Letters.
Her career began in the early 1960s on Broadway. She made her screen debut in the 1967 film The Happening and rose to fame that same year with her portrayal of outlaw Bonnie Parker in Arthur Penn's Bonnie and Clyde, for which she received her first Academy Award nomination. Her most notable films include the crime caper The Thomas Crown Affair, the drama The Arrangement, the revisionist western Little Big Man, an adaptation of the Alexander Dumas classic The Three Musketeers, the neo-noir mystery Chinatown, for which she earned her second Oscar nomination, the action drama disaster The Towering Inferno, the political thriller 3 Days of the Condor, the satire Network, for which she won an Academy Award for Best Actress, and the thriller Eyes of Laura Mars. Her career evolved to more mature and character roles in subsequent years, often in independent films, beginning with her controversial portrayal of Joan Crawford in the 1981 film Mommy Dearest. Other notable films in which she has appeared include Barfly, The Handmaid's Tale, Arizona Dream, The Twilight of the Golds, Gia and The Rules of Attraction. Dunaway also performed on stage in several plays including A Man for All Seasons, After the Fall, Hogan's Goat, A Streetcar Named Desire, and was awarded the Sarah Siddons Award for her portrayal of opera singer Maria Callas in Master Class.
She is protective of her private life, rarely gives interviews, and makes very few public appearances. After romantic relationships with Jerry Schatzberg and Marcello Mastroianni, Dunaway married twice, first singer Peter Wolf, and then photographer Terry O'Neill, with whom she had a son, Liam.
Dunaway was born in Bascom, Florida, the daughter of Grace April, a housewife, and John McDowell Dunaway Jr., a career non-commissioned officer in the United States Army. She is of Ulster Scottish, English, and German descent. She spent her childhood traveling throughout the United States and Europe.
Dunaway took dance classes, tap, piano and singing, graduated from Leon High School in Tallahassee, Florida, and then studied at Florida State University and University of Florida, and graduated from Boston University with a degree in theater. She spent the summer before her senior year in a summer stock company at Harvard's Loeb Drama Center, where one of her co-players was Jane Alexander, the actress and future head of the National Endowment for the Arts. In 1962, at the age of 21, she took acting classes at the American National Theatre and Academy. She was spotted by Lloyd Richards while performing in a production of The Crucible and was recommended to director Elia Kazan, who was in search of young talent for his Lincoln Center Repertory Company. She also studied acting at HB Studio in New York City.
Shortly after graduating from Boston University, Dunaway was appearing on Broadway as a replacement in Robert Bolt's drama A Man for All Seasons. She subsequently appeared in Arthur Miller's After the Fall and the award-winning Hogan's Goat by Harvard professor William Alfred, who became her mentor and spiritual advisor. With the exception of my mother, my brother, and my beloved son, Bill Alfred has been without question the most important single figure in my lifetime. A teacher, a mentor, and I suppose the father I never had, the parent and companion I would always have wanted if that choice had been mine. He has taught me so much about the virtue of a simple life, about spirituality, about the purity of real beauty, and how to go at this messy business of life.
Dunaway's first screen role was the comedy crime film The Happening, which starred Anthony Quinn. Her performance earned her good notices from critics, however Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times panned the performance, saying that she exhibits a real neat trick of resting her cheek on the back of her hand. That same year, she had a supporting role in Otto Preminger's drama Hurry Sundown, opposite Michael Caine and Jane Fonda. Filming proved to be difficult for Dunaway as she clashed with Preminger, who he felt didn't know anything at all about the process of acting. She later described this experience as a psychodrama that left me feeling damaged at the end of each day. Dunaway had signed a 6-picture deal with Preminger, but decided during the filming to get her contract back. As much as it cost me to get out of the deal with Otto, if I'd had to do those movies with him, then I wouldn't have done Bonnie and Clyde, or the Thomas Crown Affair, or any of the movies I was suddenly in a position to choose to do. Beyond the movies I might have missed, it would have been a kind of Chinese water torture to have been stuck in 5 more terrible movies. It's impossible to assess the damage that might have done to me that early on in my career. Preminger's film did not meet critical or box office success, but Dunaway retained notice enough to earn a Golden Globe Award nomination for New Star of the Year.
Dunaway had tried to get an interview with director Arthur Penn when he was directing The Chase, but was rebuffed by a casting director who didn't think she had the right face for the movies. When Penn saw her scenes from The Happening before its release, he decided to let her read for the role of the bank robber Bonnie Parker for his upcoming film, Bonnie and Clyde. Casting for the role of Bonnie had proved to be difficult, and many actresses had been considered for the role, including Jane Fonda, Tuesday Weld, Anne Margaret, Carol Lindley, Leslie Caron, and Natalie Wood. Penn loved Dunaway and managed to convince actor and producer Warren Beatty, who played Clyde Barrow in the film, that she was right for the part. Besides her relative anonymity, Beatty's concern was her extraordinary bone structure, which he thought might be inappropriate for Bonnie Parker, a local girl trying to look innocent while she held up small-town Texas banks. However, he changed his mind after seeing some photographs of Dunaway taken by Curtis Hanson on the beach. She could hit the ball across the net, and she had an intelligence and a strength that made her both powerful and romantic. Dunaway only had a few weeks to prepare for the role, and, when she was asked to lose weight to give her character a Depression-era look, she went on a starvation diet, stopped eating and dropped 30 pounds.
The film was controversial on its original release for its supposed glorification of murderers and for its level of graphic violence, which was unprecedented at the time. It performed well at the box office and elevated Dunaway to stardom. Roger Ebert gave the film a rave review and wrote that performances throughout are flawless. Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway, in the title roles, surpass anything they have done on the screen before and establish themselves as major actors. The film was nominated for 10 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and Dunaway received her first nomination for Best Actress. Her performance earned her a BAFTA Award for Best Newcomer and a David Di Donatello for Best Foreign Actress, and she was now among the most bankable actresses in Hollywood, as she later recalled. It put me firmly in the ranks of actresses that would do work that was art. There are those who elevate the craft of acting to the art of acting, and now I would be among them. I was the golden girl at that time. One of those women who was going to be nominated year after year for an Oscar and would win at least one. The movie established the quality of my work. Bonnie and Clyde would also turn me into a star.
That movie touched the core of my being. Never have I felt so close to a character as I felt to Bonnie. She was a yearning, edgy, ambitious Southern girl who wanted to get out of wherever she was. I knew everything about wanting to get out, and the getting out doesn't come easy. But with Bonnie there was a real tragic irony. She got out only to see that she was heading nowhere and that the end was death. Faye Dunaway.
Following the completion of the Thomas Crown affair, Dunaway leapfrogged France's new wave directors to begin filming in Italy Vittorio De Sica's romantic drama, A Place for Lovers. This film was with Marcello Mastroianni, where she played a terminally ill American fashion designer in Venice who has a whirlwind affair with a race car driver. Although Dunaway had always wanted to avoid romances with her co-stars, she began a love affair with Mastroianni that lasted for 2 years. The film was an artistic disappointment and a commercial failure. In 1969, Dunaway appeared in The Arrangement, a drama directed by Elia Kazan, based upon his novel of the same title, opposite Kirk Douglas. The film did poorly at the box office, receiving mostly negative reviews, although Dunaway was praised, with Roger Ebert writing that her acting is not only the equal of in Bonnie and Clyde, but is, indeed, the only good acting she has done since. Vincent Canby of the New York Times wrote that she was looking so cool and elegant that the sight of her almost pinches the optic nerves. Also in 1969, The Extraordinary Seaman, a comedy adventure directed by John Frankenheimer and also starring David Niven, that she shot right after Bonnie and Clyde, was released to poor reviews and proved to be a commercial failure. Despite protests from her agent, Dunaway turned down a lot of high-profile projects in order to spend time with Mastroianni.
In 1969, Dunaway took a supporting role as a favor to Arthur Penn in his western, Little Big Man. In a rare comic role, Dunaway played the sexually frustrated wife of a minister who helps raise and seduce a boy raised by Native Americans, played by Dustin Hoffman. The film was widely praised by critics and was one of Dunaway's few commercial successes at this point. That same year, she appeared in the lead role in Puzzle of a Downfall Child, an experimental drama directed by Jerry Schatzberg and inspired by the life of model Anne St. Marie. The film failed to generate commercial interest, though it earned for Dunaway a second Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress Motion Picture Drama. The film remained in obscurity over 40 years until it was revived at the 2011 Cannes Film Festival in honor of Dunaway. Involved in domestic issues in Italy with Mastroianni, after some months away from the industry, she finally found her next role in the Western doc, which tells the story of the gunfight at the OK Corral and of one of its protagonists, Doc Holliday. During the filming, Dunaway realized how much she had missed working. That same year, she went on to make the French thriller The Deadly Trap with her Lincoln Center compatriot Frank Langella, not with a director from the already crested New Wave, but with the French post-war director held in the most wide respect, René Clément. The film was screened only 5 months after the first day of shooting at the 1971 Cannes Film Festival, but was not entered into the main competition.
Neither Doc nor The Deadly Trap had generated much attention, either critically or financially, so Dunaway accepted an offer to star in a movie for television, The Woman I Love, in which she portrayed Wallis Simpson. She returned to film in 1973 with Stanley Kramer's drama, Oklahoma Crude, opposite George C. Scott. It was an ambitious project in which Dunaway had to play another complex character, a woman who is caught between her ambition and her femininity. When the film opens, she is as tough as nails, a shoot first and ask questions later woman. Along the way, she slowly opens herself up to her estranged father and a lover. I understood that dilemma well, the conflict between ambition and love, the fear of trusting someone else with your love. The film was a modest success, but Dunaway received good notices for her performance. In his review of the film, Roger Ebert noted how she had never topped the work she did in Bonnie and Clyde, and said that her career had been rather absent-minded ever since. He praised her performance in Oklahoma Crude, saying that she played the role with a great deal of style, while adding, perhaps she has decided to get back to acting.
In 1972, following the filming of Oklahoma Crude, Dunaway returned to the stage in an adaptation of Harold Pinter's Old Times. She found the stage more challenging than film. Old Times affected me in a lot of very complex ways. The play itself reminded me during a difficult point in my life that there are a million facets to life. There is never just one answer. Professionally, if I hadn't taken that step to go back to the stage in a serious way, I think I would have suffered for it. The following year, Dunaway portrayed Blanche Dubois in a Los Angeles stage adaptation of Tennessee Williams' A Streetcar Named Desire. It was a fun performance for me, but hard, very draining. At the height of the madness each night, I would go from standing straight up to falling to my knees in one swift move. Williams himself praised Dunaway for her performance. He told me later that he thought I was brave and adorable and reminded him of a precocious child, and that my performance ranked with the very best. It was high praise indeed coming from him. Also in 1973, Dunaway appeared as the villainous Milady de Winter in Richard Lester's The Three Musketeers, based on Alexander Dumas's novel of the same name, co-starring Michael York, Oliver Reed, Richard Chamberlain and Charlton Heston. Eventually, producers decided to split the film into 2 parts: The Three Musketeers and The Four Musketeers. Critics and audiences alike praised the film for its action and its comic tone, and it was the first in a line of successful projects for Dunaway.
Director Roman Polanski offered Dunaway the lead role of Evelyn Mulray in his mystery neo-noir Chinatown. Although its producer, Robert Evans, wanted Polanski to consider Jane Fonda for the role, arguing that Dunaway had a reputation for temperament, Polanski insisted on using Dunaway. She accepted the challenging and complex role of Mulray, a shadowy femme fatale who knows more than she is willing to let Detective J.J. Gitz know. Dunaway got along well with Nicholson, describing him later as a soulmate, but she clapped with Polanski, who had a reputation for being dictatorial and controlling on the set. Roman was very much an autocrat, always forcing things. It ranged from the physical to the mental. He was very domineering and abrasive, and made it clear he wanted to manipulate the performance. That approach has never worked with me.
2 weeks after the filming started, the two had a confrontation that became notorious. Polanski pulled one of Dunaway's hairs out of her head without telling her because it was catching the light. Dunaway was offended, describing his act as sadistic, and left the set furious. It was not the hair, it was the incessant cruelty that I felt, the constant sarcasm, the never-ending need to humiliate me. Years later, both shared their admiration for each other, with Polanski saying that their feud was not important, it's the result that counts. And she was formidable, while Dunaway admitted that it was way too much made out of it, added that she enjoyed working with Polanski, calling him a great director, and stated that Chinatown was possibly the best film I ever made.
Despite the complications on the set, the film was finished, released to glowing reviews and ultimately became a classic. It made back at budget almost 5 times and received 11 Academy Award nominations. Dunaway received a second Best Actress nomination and also received a Golden Globe nomination and a BAFTA nomination. Upon the release of the film, producer Robert Evans was full of praise for Dunaway. She has everything: beauty, talent, neurosis. She's one of the great strange ones. When the lights go out and that face comes out of the dark, and she looks at you with those big mysterious eyes, I tell you, it's a very compelling thing. She has something we haven't seen on the screen for a long time. She has witchery. She's a femme fatale.
That same year, Dunaway appeared in a television adaptation of After the Fall with Christopher Plummer. She played the lead role, which was for her like a dream come true. As with Bonnie, I knew the territory well. Maggie was a completely wounded soul, a girl who had grown up on the wrong side of the tracks. She next played Paul Newman's fiancée who is trapped in a burning skyscraper, along with several hundred other people in the all-star disaster epic, The Towering Inferno. The film became the highest-grossing film of the year, further cementing Dunaway as a top actress in Hollywood. Also in 1974, Dunaway married Peter Wolf, who was the lead singer of the rock group the J. Jails Band. At this time, she felt exhausted from the constant and intense pressures of the work and decided to pull out of The Wind and the Lion, in which she was to co-star with Sean Connery, at the last moment to concentrate on her married life.
Her next feature was Sidney Pollock's political thriller, 3 Days of the Condor. Her character was to be held hostage by a CIA analyst, played by Robert Redford, and Dunaway was required to display fear that she might be raped. However, she had difficulty not breaking into laughter during the shoot, as the idea of being kidnapped and ravaged by Robert Redford was anything but frightening. The film was a critical and commercial success, and Dunaway's performance, which was praised by the critics, earned her a 5th Golden Globe nomination. In his review of the film, Roger Ebert called her character the very embodiment of pluck and said that she has 3 lines of dialogue that brings the house down. They're obscene and funny and poignant all at once, and Dunaway delivers them just marvelously. Dunaway took a break from acting and spent almost a year turning down projects. She passed on a role in Alfred Hitchcock's final film, the comic thriller Family Plot, which she later lamented. She returned to the screen in 1976 with the Holocaust drama Voyage of the Damned. The story was inspired by true events concerning the fate of the MS St. Louis ocean liner carrying Jewish refugees from Germany to Cuba in 1939.
That same year, Dunaway appeared in the Paddy Chayefsky scripted satire network as the scheming TV executive Diana Christensen, a ruthless woman who will do anything for higher ratings. She loved the script and later said, "This was the only film I ever did that you didn't touch the script because it was almost as if it were written in verse." She pursued the role over the objections of her husband, Peter Wolf, and her confidant, William Alfred, who regarded Christensen as too heartless and were concerned that people would confuse her with the character. However, Dunaway believed it was one of the most important female roles to come along in years and went along with Chayefsky's conception and director Sidney Lumet's warning that she would not be allowed to sneak in any weeping or softness and that it would remain on the cutting room floor if she did.
The film, a success in its own day, is frequently discussed today due to its almost prophetic take on the television industry. Dunaway's performance was lauded, with Vincent Canby of the New York Times saying that she in particular is successful in making touching and funny a woman of psychopathic ambition and lack of feeling. Dunaway's performance in Network earned her many awards. She was named Best Actress in the Kansas City Film Critics Awards, and she also received mentions from the New York Film Critics Circle and the National Society of Film Critics. She received her 6th Golden Globe nomination for Network and was awarded Best Actress in a Motion Picture, Drama. In early 1977, the Academy Awards nominated Network for 10 awards, with Dunaway winning in her 3rd Best Actress nomination.
Also in 1976, Dunaway appeared as the lead in the made-for-television movie, The Disappearance of Amy, in which she co-starred with Bette Davis. Following her Oscar win, Dunaway took another break from acting to figure out her personal life. As her marriage was falling apart, she began a relationship with English photographer Terry O'Neill, who took one of his most famous pictures, the morning after, showing Dunaway poolside at the Beverly Hills Hotel with her Oscar the morning after the ceremony. In 1978, Dunaway returned to the screen in Irvin Kershner's thriller Eyes of Laura Mars, about a fashion photographer who sees visions of a killer murdering people. The film was a success at the box office, and Dunaway received positive reviews for her performance, with Janet Maslin writing for the New York Times that she was perfect for her role. She played supporting roles in The Champ, as the film offered her the chance to play the role of a mother, which was emotionally where I wanted to be in my life, and The First Deadly Sin, as she wanted to work with Frank Sinatra. In 1981, Dunaway played the title role in Evita Perón, a television miniseries based on the life of the famed First Lady of Argentina.
That same year, Dunaway portrayed actress Joan Crawford in the adaptation of her daughter Christina's controversial memoirs, Mommy Dearest, in which she depicted her adopted mother as an abusive tyrant who only adopted her 4 children to promote her acting career, making quite a stir as the first celebrity tell-all book. Dunaway accepted the role after meeting producer Frank Yablans and director Frank Perry, who both assured her that they wanted to tell the real story of Joan Crawford and not just a tabloid version of her life. Though Christina's book was obviously an exploitation book, the first one of its kind, my task was to portray a woman, a full woman who she was in all her facets, not just one. I tried to illuminate who this woman was. But it was more than just about being angry, it was about trying to examine and explore the forces that undermined her. To play the role, Dunaway researched Crawford's films and met with many of her friends and co-workers, including director George Cukor. Filming proved difficult for her as she was almost never out of character. If your mind is on a woman who is dead and you are trying to find out who she was and do right by her, you do feel a presence. I felt it at home at night sometimes. It wasn't pleasant. I felt Joan was not addressed. After the infamous wire hangers tantrum scene, Dunaway was so hoarse from screaming that she lost her voice. Frank Sinatra drove her to see a throat specialist and shared his own tips on how to preserve her voice.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.